and this is KAOS 89.3 FM, Olympia Community Radio. The following commentary is not necessarily the opinions of the staff, management, or underwriters of KAOS or the Evergreen State College. It is the opinions of the guest and the host. That being said, it's time to talk a little bit about some of the things coming up in the community.
State College. This is KAOS 89.3 FM, Olympia. Good afternoon and welcome to Parallel University. Opinions expressed on Parallel University belong to those who express them, not to the staff, management, or underwriters of KAOS or our license holder, the Evergreen State College. For your different opinion, feel free to contact the management at KAOS via email by kaos@evergreen.edu. We'll be back at you in just a moment with our first guest from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. And again, welcome to Parallel University. Joining me now for today's show, Joanna Paul from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. Good afternoon and welcome to KAOS. Can you hear me all right?
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, it's important business. It's been important business for a long time, and I won't, anyone who knows me knows I've been frustrated for a long, long time. Because I've also had friends who were gun owners who really were calm and rational and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of nonsense out there, and there's a lot of good people working towards stopping the nonsense as best we can. Start out with a little history of the Alliance for us, would you please?
Absolutely. So the Alliance is really an organization that is dedicated to data-driven solutions to preventing gun violence. We were founded in 2013, kind of after the Sandy Hook shooting. It really shook a lot of people up. It was a big wake-up call for a lot of people around the country. And specifically here in Washington, there are people just who wanted to do something. So I started the Alliance, and our first big effort was back in 2014 to close the background check loophole. That was the successful ballot initiative 594, which we were so happy to see passed with really, really strong support in Washington State. About 60% voted in favor of closing the loophole. And we've had some really good success with it so far. About 50 felons. We got numbers a month or two ago, were prevented from purchasing firearms in private sales, directly attributable to that law. And now we have multiple kind of pieces of what we're doing. We have C3 Foundation that does a lot of educational work. We have a legislative piece, our C4, and we talk to a lot of legislators and a lot of the public about responsible gun laws and the best solutions to put those into place. And right now, and this is kind of where I come in, more on the campaign side, we're working on Initiative 1491, Extreme Risk Protection Orders, which would allow family members of people in crisis to go to a court and get a protection order that would prohibit access to firearms for 1 year if the court finds someone is a danger to themselves or others. One of the things that we hear so often in this work is, I knew something was wrong and I couldn't do anything. And we're trying to give those families something that they can do, a real tool that they can use to prevent tragedies from happening.
Do you think Monday's Supreme Court ruling bolstered your case for that initiative?
Well, I think that the Supreme Court ruling was a really good indication that people understand that the best predictor of future violence is past violence. The gentleman involved in that case specifically had a history of domestic abuse. He had a history of other types of violent activity, and his firearms ended up being taken away because he shot a bald eagle and just kind of left it, which isn't really a responsible way to handle your firearms. So that case and that law, that federal law specifically, was really meant to address people who have a history of violence, which is 100% across the board the best indicator of future violent behavior.
One of the things I appreciate about the work you're doing and many others is that you are approaching this as a public health problem as well. And we've been prohibited from doing that for some time at the federal level by what I believe is a Dickey rider.
Yeah, so the best approach to this is absolutely a public health model. We are very, very interested in having the best data and using it in a proven way to address this problem. The same way that we use data to help reduce fatalities from traffic accidents. There is a problem at the federal level. The CDC has for many years been prohibited from funding research.
20 years now.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and it has really reduced the number of dollars available to study this problem. And when you're looking at the scope of this kind of problem, we're talking about over 30,000 Americans who are killed every single year by gun violence. That's almost 90 people a day. That's a huge public health problem. That's an epidemic. And the fact that the CDC is prevented from doing research into the base causes is a really big problem. There are private groups and state organizations that have stepped up and done some of that research, but there really isn't a substitute for those kinds of major federal level studies.
It's ironic to note that the author of the legislation itself, Mr. Dickey, is sorry he did it and wants it to go away.
I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those things that it's a huge problem.
Now,
and we know that we can work on it, and we just want to have the best way to do that and to move forward.
We're talking with Joanna Paul from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility at gunresponsibility.org, by the way. Now, 3 years ago, Seattle became the first in the nation to directly fund research into this. That's astonishing. Have I lost you there? I think.
No. I'm still here.
So there was, every now and then it gets super quiet in our headphones and we panic here in the studio. The first in the nation gun violence research.
Well, I actually am not super familiar with that. I know that the city does fund some research. I also know.
Let me give you a hand with that because
that'd be great.
I snuck over to your website. And we don't expect every guest to have every answer on any program. Because you can only be so many places at once. The study was conducted by the University of Washington's Harborview Injury Prevention and Research Center, finding a remarkable linkage between gun violence and other health risk factors, as well as an extraordinary risk of gunshot victims being victimized again. And I'm just going to bring you 3 bullet points from that, and then we'll pick it up. Individuals hospitalized with an injury and previously arrested for firearms or violence were 13 times more likely to be arrested again within the next 5 years. Individuals hospitalized for a firearm injury were 30 times more likely to be re-hospitalized for another firearm injury than people admitted to the hospital for non-injurious reasons. Individuals hospitalized with a firearm injury were 11 times more likely to die from gun violence within the next 5 years than those admitted for non-injury reasons. Now, I'm certain these numbers would change. It could go either way but with a national study, but right now that's all we have. And, of course, that goes back to the work you folks are doing.
Yeah, Harborview, first of all, I want to say, is an amazing institution that does really, really great work in this area and has been at the cutting edge of research into gun violence and gun violence prevention. So thank you, Harborview, wonderful partner. But it's amazing, and it really, I think, goes back to exactly what I was saying. People who have a violent history are very, very likely to be involved in violence in the future. So cutting that kind of cycle is the most important thing that we can do. We know that this pool of people are kind of at risk to be more likely to go forward and be victims or be shooters. So our activity right now on the campaign side is so important for Washington State right now to be able to say, you are at a very high risk. Your family members are feeling threatened. They're seeing some warning signs of danger. Maybe you're having a suicidal crisis. This is a time when you should not have firearms, and giving people those tools to cut that cycle, remove the firearms, and really say, this is a time when we want to remove that deadly weapon.
Now, it's safe to say you get serious pushback from a visible portion, I don't know how big, but a visible portion of the gun ownership community. My question that I find more interesting is, how many allies do you have within that same section of the population? Who out there that has a gun saying, you guys are doing the good work, can I help?
Actually, I was surprised when I joined this organization that there are so many gun owners who are absolutely supportive of common sense reform. It tends to get drowned out, but when you look at national polls, it's something like 80 or 90% of gun owners are really supportive of things like universal background checks. It's not coming from responsible gun owners. The pushback is really coming from gun lobby activists, often who are kind of supported by manufacturers and not from everyday responsible owners. And those owners have been very supportive, and we work with many of them in our work.
Now, you guys did manage to make Washington State the first to close a background check loophole by a popular vote.
A popular vote.
And that combination, that was a serious double whammy. Getting the law passed didn't surprise me a lot. This is Washington State, we're pretty good. But by popular vote, I kind of thought that east of the mountains, it wasn't going to happen.
Well, as I said, there is a lot of support among all segments of the population for these kinds of reforms. They really are kind of common sense things that even organizations that oppose them now supported many years ago because they just make sense. Most responsible gun owners are very willing to go through a background check for all of their sales because it makes sense that you want to have something in place to make sure that you're not selling a firearm to a felon, to a child abuser, to people who really shouldn't have them. So those laws have a lot of support statewide.
Is it safe to say there's still a bit of an assault on that initiative? Is it still under attack, trying to overturn, overthrow, or otherwise get it out of the way?
There's a court proceeding, but it's an appeal phase. We won on the legality of the issue. Now it's kind of in a second phase, but we're really confident that that's going to turn out in our favor.
We're talking with Joanna Paul from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility here today. Let's talk a little more about the public health approach and as you see it. What else can we do, at least at our level here in the Seattle, Olympia area, for that public health approach? Is it a matter of funding or not?
Yeah, I think there are two things that people can really do. One is get involved, get loud like your legislator, especially if you're in the Olympia area. Make sure you're talking to your legislators and letting them know that this is an important issue to you. Vote for Initiative 1491 because it is so important in that model and it is such an important tool for families. And make sure that your legislators understand that we need this funding and that we need to be pushing these kinds of common sense reforms constantly. I think one thing that's new on this side of the discussion is that, for many, many years, the gun lobby kind of controlled the conversation in legislative chambers because they were very, very organized, and there wasn't much organization on the other side, on the gun violence prevention side. But now there are organizations like ours, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. There are national organizations that are really giving people a place to go to form groups and communities and real impactful, focused kind of campaigns that they can make their voice heard in both the local legislatures, and at the national level. And you're seeing a lot of that take effect with our passage of 594, with some of the actions we've seen in the last couple of weeks in Congress. So those are the kinds of things that you would never have seen 5 or 10 years ago. And legislators are really feeling like, they're hearing from their constituents and they can take a much bolder stance on these issues and make sure that they're fighting for these reforms that their constituents really, really want to see.
Which brings my next question. At the state level, who are the political allies you have on this? Anybody standing out as being a standard bearer for your work?
We have so many amazing allies in the legislature. David Frost has been wonderful. I'm kind of blanking on that because I don't really work on the legislative side very much. But there are so many legislators that have just been really wonderful and helpful and have gone the extra mile for us, and who are really active with our volunteers and always talk to them and really listen to them, which I think is wonderful. We went down to Olympia with a really large group, with a couple hundred people during the session, and there was this big group of state senators and state representatives who came down and said hello to everyone. And you can check out, actually, on our website, we have a scorecard for all of the Washington State Legislature that'll show you who's been not just great in voting, but who's been really active behind the scenes, making sure that other legislators understand the importance of the issue and trying to move votes so that we can really make some progress.
You have a lot of partners. Tell our listeners about Enough is Enough, if you can.
Enough is Enough?
Yes, the group you're partnering with for the, I believe, this extreme risk protection orders.
I'm not familiar with that.
All right, well, let me see if I can be of some help. No, like I said, this happens. No. Let's not have you feeling bad. Our guests are our guests. It's another community group that was working on these issues. And, wow. It's a big webpage, by the way. This one really keeps you busy.
We do like to keep you involved on the website a lot. We have a ton of information there, actually. So if you're wanting to go, it's our responsibility.
Since that's not jumping out and talking, I will tell you that in May, Congressman Adam Smith endorsed 1491.
Yes. Yeah, he was really active. He was super early to endorse 594. He was very early to endorse 1491, and he's been a really wonderful ally in our work.
I also, before that, earlier in May, Gabby Giffords got behind what you're doing, and her husband.
Yeah, so Congresswoman Giffords and her husband have been so helpful. They have this organization called Americans for Responsible Solutions that does a lot of work on the national level, but they've been in town several times, most recently for our luncheon, and they're such powerful speakers because of their personal experience with Gabby being shot. And they're actually, they're gun owners, and they're very, aware of the issues there, and the whole message comes down to responsibility and making sure that common sense laws are in place. So our work and their work has really dovetailed nicely, and they were so supportive of 1491 and did a lot of wonderful work while they were here on that.
We're talking with Joanna Paul from Alliance for Gun Responsibility. Despite your being involved with this, does it sometimes make you look crazy that it's still taking this long to get something done? I actually like to look at it the other way. I think that there is a lot happening. It seems like progress isn't coming quickly enough, often, and that's absolutely true because, when you're looking at these numbers, it's like, why didn't we do something 10 years ago? Why didn't we do something 20 years ago? How have we gotten this far? But when we actually look at the progress that we've made just in the last couple of years, with 594 passing by popular vote, with several other states now having background check bills going to a popular vote, with these amazing national organizations building, really large, strong grassroots networks like Moms Demand Action, who are, in Washington State, they're out all the time, volunteering and talking with people, and really getting people engaged and active on the issue. I think that you're seeing a sea change of people being able to focus on this issue that they really care about, and that is leading to change, and it will continue to kind of snowball as we see more laws go into effect and we see the effects of those laws, as we see
more and more people become active and involved, that's going to be a big snowball effect, and I think we're going to see change come even faster.
Just a couple more points before I let you know, because I do know you have to be elsewhere today. And again, you came on board today at such short notice. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know, less than 24 hours, and these guys committed to joining us today. So it was a kindness, and we do thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more, if you have the information, on the expanding use of firearm trace data?
So we've been active a little bit in that on our C3 side, and I think there are some reports that are going to be coming out, but I don't have a lot of information that I can share right now.
For those listening, it's basically the imprints on bullet casings left by the firearms that discharged them. You know, the stuff you see on CSI all the time, and there's no universal national tracking system for this. Basically, the firearms, Tobacco and Firearms and Alcohol Bureau has to keep paper files because of lobbyists not allowing genuine data collection with computers. And it's kind of scary. Now, Johns Hopkins University for Center for Gun Policy Research, in Milwaukee, one gun dealer had sold more than half of the crime guns recovered in crimes in that city. In Chicago, Detroit, tracing played a major role in instigating stings on gun dealers violating the law. And in Boston, that trace data showed the impact of a major anti-gun trafficking initiative. So again, communities at the community level are making the difference. Things can happen without waiting for the feds, is what I'm saying.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's the most important point. We need Congress to act, and I'm definitely not ever going to let them off that hook for not acting on this issue. I think, it's kind of despicable that they're, refusing even to take votes at this point on these issues. But there is so much that can be done at the state level, and so much that people can do and voters can do to make sure that these issues move forward, especially using these data-driven methods to figure out just what the actual problem is and the best ways to solve it. And I think we're really coming a very long way in that fight. And the next step, 1491.
Well,
so,
lastly, if we can touch briefly on child access prevention, because that's,
yeah.
again, that's one that scares the bejesus out of me. Kids getting their hands on these things and something awful happens.
It's so scary. I think it's something like one child a day accidentally shoots themselves or someone else. And that's a really terrifying number. And, one of the things that I hate seeing most, just so scary, are stories about toddlers who find a firearm and hurt themselves because a toddler really shouldn't have access to a loaded firearm. And you hear those stories, they're fairly common. And what we know is that there are a lot of households with firearms and children where those firearms are left loaded and unlocked. And we know that states that have stronger laws about making sure that those firearms are kept locked and unloaded, states that make sure to invest in those kinds of programs do have better outcomes for kids and less of these problems. So that's a policy that we've been working on and will continue to work on.
I dare say it's important. I mean, as it is, current law allows adults to elude criminal liability, which is,
I think the point is that, children are not good at making these decisions for themselves. There are lots of studies about kids, even who've been trained not to touch firearms. If they find one and think that no one's watching, they will pick it up in a lot of cases, in far too many cases. And the point is making sure that adults are acting responsibly and making sure that those firearms are not within easy reach of children. And it seems like a common sense step to take. And so that's one thing that we're definitely working on.
Well, it's good work. I congratulate you. to keep working at this because I like the fact that you're committed to finding evidence-based solutions. You can't go wrong in that direction. Joanna Paul, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, gunresponsibility.org. Thank you so much for joining us today on KAOS.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to take a short break. When we come back from all this good stuff, we're going to hear from Dr. Jill Stein. You're listening to
HospiceWithoutBorders.com.
Looking for a way to support KAOS but not ready to be a DJ? We've got plenty of ways that you can get involved and help out. KAOS is a non-profit organization that counts on listeners like you to keep us going. We always need volunteers to help us with our music library, get the word out and go to local events, and assist with our production team. If you want to be a volunteer, come talk to us during normal business hours or log on to kaosradio.org. See you soon.
The time is 12:31. You're listening to Pearl University, where opinions expressed